And when you become a coach, you're helping your players, or let's say your managers that report to you, become fully autonomous. Become
Eloquens, the leading digital marketplace where you can share, discover, and download best practices from around the world. Our authors have published smart models and frameworks in domains of finance, strategy, marketing, and so much more. In this series, we sit down with the authors who drive our platform forward.
Hello and welcome everyone. This is Rishi from Eloquens.com and you're tuned in to the Eloquens author interview series. Today I'm joined by Stephen Goldberg, the founder of Optimus Performance and an expert in performance management, leadership coaching and corporate team building. Hi Stephen, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you on. Before we get into some of the best practices available on your Eloquens channel, can you please give us a little background into your career history, your professional achievements and experience, and perhaps a little insight into the operations at Optimus Performance?
Yeah, so I started in this field over 25 years ago. Um, it actually started when I became a client of a coach. I was working in a small family business, and I was having, I recognized that one of the most difficult parts of running a business was dealing with people, hiring the right people, managing them, getting them to perform to the level that we needed. And so I hired somebody, approached me, and I decided to work with them. And that opened my eyes to the potential that I had to become a better manager, leader, and to just grow as a person. And I recognized that this was something that was very interesting to me, the leadership, personal development. And at one point, I made a decision to leave the family business and go into the field of training and development and coaching. And I started approaching and working with mostly small, medium sized business owners. And that's who I tend to work with today as well. So that's how I got to be where I am. And Optimus Performance, I started working actually with the person who trained me, and then I formed Optimus Performance to go on my own. And we had different uh, changes. It evolved from 6, 7 people to today it's myself and an assistant and a part-time administrator. So that's where I am today.
Fantastic. Yes. Indeed, performance management and working with people is, I agree, one of the most important things, as at the end of the day, business is done between people and other people, and ensuring that there's a good connection and relationship between the two is very important for business success at the end of the day. And I would just like to touch on that a little bit more because often people don't truly understand what management consulting and being a leadership coach actually really is. What would be your description of performance management and being a leadership coach?
Well, I guess a coach is, we often think of coach as somebody in the sports industry or the sports field. That's the easiest analogy to make. And I mean, here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, our probably number one sport is hockey. And or any matches, soccer's become very popular. But when you see the coach, he's not on the ice, if it's hockey or soccer, on the field with the players. He's sitting back observing them. And his role during a match is really to make decisions and help the players make better decisions and give them feedback on the fly. But when they're not in the action, what are they doing? It's also an analogy I use often is like a fire chief. When they're not fighting a fire, they're working with each team or individual to help them further develop their skills. Because, as Einstein is known to have said, we use less than 10% of our brain potential. And so there's unlimited capacity to grow and to be more effective as a human. And this then touches on to every aspect of life, not just professional, but personal as well. So the more we grow as a human being in whatever role we have in a balanced way, the more effective we can become, the more richer our relationships can be, the better we can be at performing our tasks, and the greater success we can have in life. And I don't mean just financial success, that will come, but just success in general. And that could be just satisfaction with who you are, satisfaction with your growth, just feeling good about life and yourself. And that's really what it's all about.
Precisely. If you feel good in your personal life, then of course it's not all about business success, but if you feel good in your personal life, that certainly does contribute to
So
overall
I,
business
yeah, and
success.
I guess the role of a coach is really to help people tap into more of that personal potential and success and use the knowledge and experience that you already have.
Precisely, to use the knowledge that you have. And also, what would you think on being a coach in terms of being able to then, let's say, look back at, to use the analogy you used previously, look back at your players in terms of, for you this would be your clients, and then where, because your clients are fully involved into their business, perhaps they don't have the self-reflection needed in order to really improve their business, whereas as a coach you can look at it from an outside perspective perhaps, and then give them the information that they need in a concise and informed manner. How important do you think this is for overall business growth in the long term?
Well, I think that the true role of an external coach, like if a company brings me in to work with the leaders, my goal is really to help them become coaches for their team. And when you become a coach, you're helping your players, or let's say your managers that report to you, become fully autonomous, become fully responsible to manage their respective areas fully, and be able to have them take complete ownership and have the highest level of authority to make decisions as possible, so the business owner can free themselves to work on other projects, either higher level growth, or just having more time for themselves, for their family. And this to me should be the ultimate goal of every business owner and leader. And so the business is no longer dependent on them, it's dependent on everybody else running the business, and they can free themselves and still have the business being very successful. But to make that transformation, the business owner or CEO needs to adapt a coaching style of leadership. And that's often very difficult for startups and entrepreneurs to achieve. But if they're cognitive of that, and they know the path they need to take, that's where an external coach can help them move towards that ultimate goal of leadership.
Exactly, I totally agree, especially for startups where in the beginning stages, the CEOs often have a lot of things to do, and maybe they would put leadership and coaching to the side in terms of trying to prioritize their objectives, which in the long term can be detrimental to the business. And that's where you, as a leadership coach, can come in and really realign the objectives and help the business move forward. I totally agree. In terms of your Eloquens channel, you have 38 best practices in regards to leadership coaching and performance management. What different types of best practices do you have on your Eloquence channel for these different startup CEOs and managers to use in their own business?
Well, they vary from simply just goal setting. Everybody knows about goals or goal setting. What I like about the best practice I uploaded for that is using the goal planning worksheet um, to map out your goal. And it's also a problem solving tool in itself. And often people set goals like now we're in December, we're coming up to the end of the year. And I have a best practice called Year in Review. It's just a simple PowerPoint. I use it myself every year. I've developed that habit. I was actually thinking of it this morning that I have to go back to that best practice and the goals I set for this year and review them again. And also maybe remind people about this best practice. And that's just, a best practice of reviewing your year, your highlights, what you were happy with, what you weren't happy with, what went wrong, and what you want to achieve for the coming year. And, if you combine that with the goal planning worksheet for your most important goals, you have a much greater chance of achieving them. But, often people just think of their New Year's resolution or their goal that they want to achieve, and then they forget about it because, we lose focus. But when you write something down and you look at it on a regular basis and you review it, you're more likely to be able to take the action steps to achieve it. So, that's one. Goal setting is one. Um, there's another one on just managing employee performance using what I call the win win agreement. Actually, I just recorded a new video or published one on my YouTube channel today about that. So again, it relates to goal setting, but it's about having alignment or clarity with the people that report to you, so you agree on not just that what's their role, the definition of their role, what they need to do, but what are the performance commitments they're making to help you achieve your goals. So it goes back to the goal. If you know your goals of the company or the department and you communicate that to your staff, then it's up to them to formulate, this is what the win-win agreement is, performance commitments that they're ready to make to work in their department with their team to achieve the goals of the department or the company. And so things like that is best practices that um, any CEO or business owner can use to also start taking a coaching style of leadership and delegate authority and responsibility to the people that need to be the leaders in the company. So that's another
Exa-
one. I don't have a list in front of me of all the best practices. There's
Of
some
course.
on problem solving. I mentioned goal setting is a problem solving tool in itself, but I've published others. There's a spreadsheet on simple spreadsheet to look at, evaluate how people are performing, and be able to then from that look at who your top performers are based on specific criteria. Like if I asked a CEO or business owner, so you have five salespeople, which one is your best performer? They'll be able to tell me based on their sales numbers. But why are they the best performer? On what criteria do evaluate. It's kind of like, what are they doing to become that best performer versus the other one? Once you break it down by activity and what they do well versus the others, you're able to then, you know, strategize and say, well, why can't this other person uh, perform that activity to drive those sales? So it's just like an exercise in thinking and strategizing, and puts you more in a action mode once you kind of think through what the problem is and what you can do about it. And that's also where an external coach can help you make those analyses and think through what action or decisions you can make to address the performance of that person, if it's a salesperson, let's say.
No, exactly. That's a great example of how you can really implement those best practices into your company as well. And in terms of, as you said, the sales example, if I go back previously to what you said about goal setting, how important do you think it is, obviously, to set goals, not only to set goals, but to set mini goals and to take real action steps in order to fulfill the larger goal? Perhaps during at the end of the year, during your year in review, you have a goal for next year, but there needs to be sort of small action steps. And how does your best practices incorporate these small action steps to then fulfill the larger goal at the end?
Well, that's where my goal planning worksheet comes in. Like when you set, there's that acronym for SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timed. If you set a goal that way, I mean, one of the easiest examples is, well, my goal is to drop 20 pounds over the next 6 months. And so, you know, why do you want to achieve that? What's going to be the benefit? That's, an important element. You have to be able to write down at least 5 or 6 benefits from that goal to make it motivating enough to take action. Then you want to define, okay, well, what are the obstacles for me achieving that? Well, I love sugar. How do I stop that craving for sugar? I mean, it's not just me. Um, it's everybody. I mean, my partner
Exactly.
just sent me an email with a link to a video from a doctor who says that if you stay off sugar for 1 month, your cholesterol level will drop. And I have high cholesterol, so I'm going to try it. But the obstacle is the craving. So, what's the solution? Well,
Of course.
replace the sugar with maybe, a non processed sugar like a fruit or something, or, drink a glass of water. So, that action, that solution becomes a mini goal, like you say. So, you know, my big goal is to drop 20 pounds. Um, One of my actions or mini goals is to cut out sugar for the next 3 months, processed sugar, candy, chocolate. And that becomes a mini goal, but it's an important goal to achieve your big goal. So when you go through the goal planning worksheet, you come up with these solutions which become your action steps, and they're actually mini goals in themselves.
Definitely. I found that, especially in my own life, when I set goals, often they can be a bit daunting. But when you really break it down into small steps and then have measurable and, as you said, achievable, realistic goals, which again can be measured, you are then able to achieve your larger goal both more efficiently and also
Well,
easier.
that's why you don't need to
Um,
set a huge amount of goals. You should set, like, there's this expression: set at least one must achieve goal. And if you think of how that must achieve goal will impact other aspects of your life, like I'm talking about health, um, if, you know, I went through a medical emergency 2 months ago where I had a heart attack. I was riding my bike. I didn't feel good. I hadn't felt good for a couple of days. And I went to the hospital and I found out I was having a heart attack. And 2 days later, I had quadruple bypass surgery. This was in September. And so the urgency of setting health goals
Of
becomes
course,
much more
exactly.
apparent. And that's often when people make big decisions, life changes. But so if I set a goal relating to staying healthy and avoiding that, buildup of plaque in my arteries, it's going to have a dramatic impact not only on the prevention of you know reoccurring heart attack, but it's also going to improve other aspects of my life. I mean, even down to my family. It's I won't be dependent because of bad health on my family. I'm not going to labor them with having to take care of me. I'm still going to be able to work, so I'll still be able to serve others and have revenue. So if I set this one goal to maintain or keep improving my health, it's going to impact all different dimensions of my life, and I don't have to set a million goals or goals for each dimension of my life, because even as part of that, exercise is a component. So one must achieve goal can really help you achieve mini goals that you don't even aren't even thinking of right now.
Definitely. Well, I can say that from me, my perspective, you look very healthy right now. So hopefully that's a good sign for the future to come. But no, as you said, prioritizing goals is very important as well. Of course, you can have a lot of goals, but as you said, having one goal often is better because you're more likely to achieve that and put all your efforts into achieving that, and then you can then move forwards with other goals after that. Also, I think that maybe once you've set a goal and achieved it, you then set a mentality for yourself that, okay, I can set goals now and I can achieve them by doing this process. And you can then apply the same process into other areas and walks of life, as you said, with health, with business, with personal relationships, and many other things of the sort. And if we just move on to your Eloquence channel, your press practices actually have accrued close to 1,000 users right now, which is wonderful because we've now got 1,000 people who have downloaded your best practices and who are using your templates to further better their own lives and to improve their business. So with your content, who would be your ideal consumer? What does this consumer sort of struggle with at the moment, and what are the solutions that you provide to this person who is looking to set goals and develop their own organizational strategy for their business?
Well, my ideal client to work with is either a small, medium-sized business owner, generally someone with 10 to 100 employees, I guess is the range that I like to work with, or a leader in a department of a company um, that is wanting to grow, wanting to become a better coach. Um, so anybody in a leadership role or wants to develop teamwork in their department as well. I've done a lot of work in helping leaders understanding how to develop teamwork. Uh, because what I find is most business owners or even leaders of a department or of um, a functional area of a company don't really understand what teamwork is all about. And they think, well, if everybody's getting along with each other, that they're being productive, that's teamwork. But real teamwork is about delegating a decision making to the maximum to your team, to having teams become more autonomous. And there's a track, there's a process that a business owner, or leader has to understand and has to take action on to develop teams that are autonomous and practicing, that are agile and are practicing continuous improvement on their own, not depending on the leader to direct them all the time or make the decisions, but they are able to come to the leader with proposals on improvements for the department, um, because they're practicing continuous improvement. So, in order for that to happen, there's skills that each team member needs to learn, um, and that it's the leader's responsibility to make sure that they learn it. But often leaders themselves haven't developed that skill set. So you have to start with the understanding and training the leaders, and then moving towards the team. So I diverged from your answer, but it's basically business owners and functional area leaders who want to um, become more of a coach, and be able to delegate better and develop more autonomous teamwork that drives continuous improvement. That's who my target audience really is. And there's another component too, is um, working with the business owner or the HR person, if there is one, on helping them hire the right person for the job. Because you have to have the right person for the job, and it's not just the skills or the experience, it's also the behavioral traits, the personality that will fit with the company and also fit with the job.
Fantastic. Yes. No, you answered my question terrifically, actually. Especially with your last point as well, in terms of having the right employees for the right job, which fits the company philosophy and can then integrate with the other employees smoothly and without any sort of disruption. And you spoke of that's your main target audience is small to medium sized businesses. What are the typical advantages that these businesses can expect when hiring your Optimus Performance, for example, to then come and redevelop their leaders and implement a new organizational strategy within their business?
Well, if the business owner or leaders start putting into practice, let's say, just uh, being better at communicating with their direct reports and giving feedback and meeting them on a regular basis for a coaching session rather than just meeting them on the fly to find out what they're working on, how it's going. I mean, that's going to continue anyways, but taking the time to sit down with the person, find out how they're experiencing their work, what are their challenges, what solutions can they come up with on their own, really coaching them and helping and looking at training opportunities for each individual in the team. If they could start just putting more time into that than just trying to put out fires all the time, um, they're going to see a gain in personal time for themselves, in strategic time. They're going to see people feeling more empowered, more motivated, more engaged with the job and the company. Um, and they'll be able to retain people better. Turnover is very costly. If you lose a top performer because you're not challenging them enough or you're not delegating enough for them, giving them enough responsibility, people leave a lot today for these reasons. There's a lot of opportunity um, to grow with other firms if you feel you're stagnant in your job. But meeting people on a regular basis to find out what they're experiencing, what's in their head, will help you better understand um, how engaged the person is and will improve your relationship. You know, there's this old expression, people leave managers, not jobs, or they leave relationships, not jobs. So if they're feeling that there's a disconnect with their boss or their team members, and they have another opportunity, which perhaps it's better, perhaps it's not. But if they're not feeling um, that they're getting what they need from their current job, they may start looking around, you know. Um, so, like,
Yes, definitely. I think
you know, part of what we do with my assistant is uh, help some companies hire hard to fill positions. And one of my clients looking for an engineer, and two of the people that applied are already working in the company as technicians, but they have engineering degrees, but they're not using their. So this poses a question. Well, if they saw the job posting online and they've applied for it, and if they don't get this job, maybe they're not qualified enough. I don't think they are, but their current boss and the person that's doing the hiring for the new job should be aware of this and have a conversation with them, because if they saw this job means they're looking on the job market to see what. So you're going to lose that employee if you don't take action to find out what's going on, or at least explore it with them. Why are they looking for another job? And be prepared that you might lose them if they find something better that meets what they're looking for. So if you're taking a coaching
yes,
style of leadership and you're meeting on a regular basis with your employees, even if it's once every 3 months, to have a coaching conversation with them, you're now establishing more trust. They may open up to you and tell you what's going on. But I know that, like, I just published a new best practice. It's a training that I'm going to upload to Eloquens on employee performance evaluation. And um, I know that in a lot of small companies, they don't even do an annual performance evaluation um, because they don't have the time or they don't know how to do it or whatever. So I created this training to walk people through how to do it. So you need to take the time to sit down with people at least once a year, but I would suggest every quarter, ideally every month. But leaders often say, "I don't have the time for that." You know.
no, definitely. I think it's very important, especially as a CEO or a manager. Oftentimes, you don't get to be on perhaps in the same office, the same room as your employees, and you don't get to know the feel of the office and how your employees are doing with the work. And having those meetings really makes you get in tune with your employees and then therefore be able to deliver the best results in the long term. Having an unhappy employee at work, especially in a small business, is highly inefficient when you don't have a lot of funds to go around, especially. And I think that's one of the advantages that you've talked about, and that you can find through your best practices on the Eloquence channel. In terms of a wider target audience, for example, let's say someone who had a larger company than the companies that you usually deal with, are there still can they still use your best practices and implement them in a different version, perhaps in their own company? And is your best practices widely sort of adaptable to different businesses?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter the size of the company. I tend to work with small, medium sized business, the size I mentioned, because I grew up in that type of business. I only worked once for a larger company, um, but the rest of the time it was all in an entrepreneurial type setting, smaller, medium sized business. And that's where I enjoy working, and that's where I feel I'm most effective with those types of business owners. But the best practices apply to any company of any size. I mean, if I'm, let's say I go back to the example of a sales manager, if I'm working in a large corporation and I have um, a division where I have 40 salespeople, and then I have, let's say, sales supervisors or whatever. I mean, the same thing applies, that you want your sales supervisors to be autonomous to a certain degree. So you have to establish clarity and communication between you and them, and not try and do the job of the sales supervisor. You want them to, you want the roles to be very clear. And so you have time to do the analysis, the strategizing, the crunching, the numbers, whatever it is. And, you know, meet with your sales supervisor on a weekly or, bi-week, whatever it is, um, and go out and look for new opportunities, new partnerships. So the same practices happen. You might have more structure, which could be both good and bad, because sometimes, structure means you have certain rules that may not mean sense to you, but you have to follow them for protocol. Um, and sometimes it's great because you have that support, that structure, which creates clear processes that are beneficial to the company and to you as a leader and to the employees. So, but the behavioral stuff is basically the same. Um, just you have to work within the limitations or the protocols that larger companies may impose upon you.
Definitely. I think companies often look at the behavior of their consumers, of their customers and clients, and adjust their dynamics according to that. Whereas I think also looking at the behavior of your own employees is as important, if not more, as they're the ones who drive the success of your business at the end of the day. And so I think what you're doing is actually very innovative, although it may seem simple, is very, very important in the grand scheme of things. And in terms of your long term vision for your content, both on your Eloquence channel and also your vision for Optimus Performance in the future, where do you see this company going? And do you plan to also publish more best practices on your Eloquence channel alongside this?
Yeah, well, I have best practice for employee performance review. I want to publish. I just completed it, so I have that as something new. The other thing that I'm launching, which right now I can't do on Eloquens because you don't have that platform, but it's workshops, live workshops. Um, now with how, because of, I guess, the pandemic and um, how things have evolved with hybrid working, people are more comfortable with attending workshops on a live basis. So I have um, a workshop. Well, I have leadership workshops, but one of the components is know your type, know yourself. And knowing yourself is an important aspect of leadership, and also towards developing a more coaching leadership styles. Different types of people have different qualities that are inborn, and also, um, I guess, blocks or uh, things that qualities that may be hindersome towards applying some of the best practice, not only that I put forward, but other professionals do as well, especially when it comes to behavior. So understanding and knowing yourself is important to be able to apply a lot of the best practices um, in a way that you'll benefit from them. So I'm starting these workshops as kind of an introduction to knowing your type and becoming a better leader. And I would like or wish that Eloquens would uh, offer a way to do that through the channel so I can reach people that are subscribed or users of Eloquens, not only the people that are the 1,000 that have downloaded my best practices, but others as well, that we could offer this collectively and people could join also live workshops and get to know the publishers through these workshops, and the technology is there. So this is something that I think I hope for myself to educate more people or to um, reach more people that can benefit from my knowledge and what I learned about this subject, but that also I could partner with a platform like Eloquens to reach a broader audience and so I guess that's my hope. And for me, it's a way to obviously share my expertise and attract or give proof of or demonstrate who I am and what I can do. And it could be the same for other members of Eloquence. So that's kind of like my vision for uh, my growth and also for partnering with Eloquens. I know you guys have already thought about that, but haven't launched anything yet. So I guess I'm prompting you to maybe consider that more seriously and do something about it. And I actually just thought of that right now. I didn't
No,
think of it before this conversation about maybe partnering with Eloquens for live workshops.
no, definitely. It sounds like a great idea, especially the interactive feature between yourself and users. So users can feel a bit more a part of what's going on. They can ask questions, for example, through a chat section. So that's something which we'll definitely look into in the future and hopefully get launched as well. You talked about your these interactive workshops which you're beginning to start, and obviously this will help you differentiate as well yourself from perhaps any competitors that you may have. Do you have any other sort of differences, and what makes you stand out within the sort of performance management industry and optimizing performance?
Well, I think, if I look at the leadership training workshops and the team development, I think incorporating this types of people approach into that is something unique and a differentiating factor. Because when I first learned this approach as part of a leadership training, I learned it from my former partner and mentor, Fritz Klaus, who actually wrote a book on this called Crazy Zoo. Let me just get it here. All right. It's called Crazy Zoo, Know Thyself Made Easy. This book is just about types of people, and it's a fable about zoo animals that can communicate telepathically with the zookeeper, who first meets them as a young boy and then takes over as the zookeeper, and he can speak telepathically to the animals. So it's a fable, but each animal represents, I have it actually here on the flip chart. the six types, classic types of people. And we do an exercise in the workshops to help people learn their type and the qualities associated and the things, the negative tendencies as well that other people perceive about you that is related to your type. So once, all change starts with awareness. And once you become aware of how others may perceive you, um, that you may think is positive, but they may perceive as negative in certain situations. As a leader, if you build that awareness and you start taking action, you acknowledge it, um, you start changing the dynamics of how you lead and coach others. Very powerful tool. And it's done as an exercise in a workshop. That's why I'm launching these workshops. Um, Whereas I also use psychometric assessments, which is another way to help people know themselves. And I use both in my coaching. But when you answer a questionnaire and get a report, it's hard to retain that information. But when you go through a workshop where you're actually experiencing this discovery about yourself and the types, and you do it as a team in a group, it sticks with you much more. And it had a very powerful impact on me and made me understood what I needed to work on as a leader. And it's something that you have to continuously be aware of because it's an inborn trait that doesn't go away. You know, um, it's like Benjamin Franklin. You know the name Benjamin Franklin. He was a very powerful uh, inventor, statesman. I mean, this guy did so many things. It's really impressive. And one of the things he did was work on one thing, 13 things a year. So every 30 days, about or less, he would switch to develop new habits. But one of the qualities or negative tendencies of his type was his vanity. And he said once that that was the only thing he couldn't he couldn't get rid of, was this negative aspect due to his personal vanity, which is related to his human type. So it's something that's built, that you're born with, and you can only become aware of and work on. And unless you have that, develop that awareness, you can't really understand some of the impressions you make on other people and do something about it. So I think this is a very unique approach that we've integrated into our workshops and sticks with people, and versus doing like a Myers-Briggs or any type of psychometric assessment. I know those are great tools and we do use them, especially for helping companies hire the right people. So I guess that what's the other thing that makes me unique is just who I am. I mean, some people will connect with me,
Exactly,
others won't,
exactly. That's the
so
main thing.
uh, it's the way it is, and you
Of
have to
course.
accept that.
No, definitely. I think that's a very good point actually about the being self-aware and being self-reflective, especially as a leader. If you're trying to lead other people and you don't know your own self, it can cause difficulties later down the line. So I think that's very important. And those psychometric assessments, as you said, are available. I've seen on your Eloquens channel, for companies to use and implement, as you said, when hiring employees potentially, or even just during the quarterly reviews of employees, just to see how they are doing with the business and potentially to see that they have become self-aware and improved upon the things that you've mentioned just now. Um, Before we go, because this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned quite a lot actually about self-reflection, about leadership coaching, performance management, an industry which I didn't know too much about before. Now I think I know a bit more. Of course, nowhere near the expert as yourself. But before we go, you can find Stephen's channel with a full list of his best practices, including these psychometric assessments, organizational strategies, performance management, goal setting, and much, much more at Stephen Goldberg on Eloquens.com. Stephen, please also let people know where they can find details for Optimus Performance and how to get in touch with you
Well,
after
my
this.
website is optimusperformance.ca. So you could search for that. Also, you could find me on YouTube, just searching Stephen Goldberg. You'll find me there. I have well over 300 videos as well. A lot of them are incorporated into my best practices on Eloquens, and also have articles that accompany videos on the blog section of my website. So, that's basically, or on LinkedIn, you could search me on LinkedIn too. And you could also request a free consult with me if you want to meet me and discuss possibly working with me. You could do that, have a free consult, and then we can discuss options.
Fantastic, and I would highly recommend anyone who's a leader or a manager and wanted to improve their skills, or even just become more self-aware, as you said, for small to medium-sized businesses, to really check out to Optimus Performance and check out Stephen's content on his Eloquens channel. Thank you once again for joining us today and sharing your extensive knowledge and insight into the world of
You're
high
welcome,
performance
and
management, Stephen.
thank you again for inviting me. I enjoyed this.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and I hope you've learned something. I know I certainly have. And we'll see you next time with a new expert on the Eloquens author interview series.
Thank you once again for tuning in. To stay up to date with the Eloquens author interview series, click the subscribe button below, and for more episodes like this one, view the full series on our YouTube channel. For more information on how to become a registered author and start boosting your yearly revenue, visit eloquens.com or contact our team at elise.white@eloquens.com. Remember, don't reinvent the wheel.